The Indian Tejas light combat aircraft was supposed to be a symbol of national pride, a fully indigenous fighter jet developed to reduce dependence on foreign military hardware, boost the domestic defense industry, and propel India into a select group of nations capable of building supersonic fighter aircraft. Yet, despite its ambitious goals and years of effort, the Tejas has become a polarizing subject, often ridiculed and criticized, both within India and by international observers. So the question arises, why does everyone seem to hate the Indian Tejas LCA? To understand the roots of the criticism, it's important to go back to the beginning. The Tejas project was initiated in the early 1980s, intended to replace the aging fleet of MiG-21s that the Indian Air Force had been flying for decades. The Defense Research and Development Organization (DRDO), through its aeronautical wing HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, was tasked with developing the aircraft. It was to be a sleek, agile, modern fourth-generation fighter with advanced avionics, fly-by-wire control systems, and multi-role capabilities. However, what followed was a textbook case of bureaucratic inefficiencies, delays, cost overruns, and changing requirements. The project, which was supposed to take 10 to 12 years, ended up dragging on for over 3 decades. During this time, global aviation technology advanced significantly, and aircraft from other countries, like the F-16, JF-17 Gripen, and Rafale, continued evolving. By the time the Tejas was ready for limited service induction in 2016, it was being compared not to its contemporaries from the 1980s, but to far more advanced aircraft of the 2010s. The first major criticism of the Tejas is its prolonged development cycle. Many see it as a failure of the Indian defense ecosystem to deliver a timely solution. From a symbolic standpoint, it reflects poorly on India's ability to deliver complex military platforms, especially when other countries with fewer resources have managed to do so more efficiently. Critics argue that the aircraft entered service decades too late to be relevant in the high-speed evolution of modern warfare. Secondly, there's the issue of its performance. Although the Tejas is classified as a fourth-generation fighter, many analysts argue that it lacks the firepower, range, and payload capacity of other fighters in the same class. Its small size, while making it maneuverable and harder to detect visually, also limits the number of weapons and fuel it can carry. Its range is relatively limited without aerial refueling, and critics have pointed out that in real combat scenarios, it may not be able to match adversaries equipped with longer range or more heavily armed aircraft. Then there's the question of its engine and components. Despite being touted as indigenous, the Tejas still relies heavily on foreign technology. Its engine, the JF-404, is American. The radar was originally Israeli, and many of its subsystems come from abroad. This undermines the claim of it being a truly Indian jet. In an era where self-reliance in defense is politically and strategically significant, the Tejas does not fully deliver on that promise. For many, it feels more like an assembly of imported parts rather than a homegrown marvel. Operational issues have also plagued the aircraft. Reports from the Indian Air Force itself have noted issues with maintenance, spare parts availability, and mission readiness. Pilots have expressed concerns over the aircraft's ergonomics, radar limitations, and lack of an active electronically scanned array (AESA) radar in earlier variants. When a fighter cannot be reliably deployed in high-tempo combat scenarios, its strategic utility comes under question, and this further fuels the skepticism. There's also a psychological factor at play. In the eyes of many, Tejas was marketed as India's answer to the best jets in the world. When the reality didn't match the hype, disillusionment set in. Comparisons with the Chinese JF-17, which was developed in partnership with Pakistan and China, became inevitable. While both aircraft have their limitations, the JF-17 was inducted earlier and in greater numbers, leading many to believe that China and Pakistan had outpaced India in this arena, a notion that struck a particularly sensitive chord in Indian public and strategic circles. Internationally, the Tejas has struggled to find buyers. A few countries have expressed interest, but no major export deals have materialized. This contrasts with other aircraft like the Gripen or F-16, which have seen multiple foreign buyers. For an aircraft to be truly successful, especially in today's defense economy, it must attract global interest. The lack of export success reinforces the perception that Tejas is a subpar platform not even other developing nations are willing to gamble on. Despite all these criticisms, it's worth noting that the Tejas does have its defenders. It is lightweight, extremely agile, and in capable hands can serve effectively in certain combat scenarios. The Indian Navy initially rejected it for being underpowered for carrier operations, but there have been efforts to develop a twin-engine version for naval use. The Mk1A variant and future Mk2 versions promise to correct many of the shortcomings of the earlier models, including better radar, more powerful engines, and reduced foreign dependency. But the damage to its reputation has been done. In the harsh and often unforgiving world of defense technology, perception matters. The Tejas has come to symbolize what many see as the inefficiencies of Indian defense R&D, a project high on ambition but dragged down by bureaucracy, poor project management, and inconsistent vision. Even though it has begun to enter service in larger numbers and might one day prove its worth operationally, the early years of its development have left a legacy of criticism that is hard to shake off. So, does everyone really hate the Tejas? Maybe not. But the frustration is clear. It's not so much the aircraft itself that draws the ire, but everything it represents: lost time, unrealized potential, and the difficult path of building something complex from scratch in a system not designed for speed or innovation. The Tejas LCA may one day earn the respect it has long sought, but as of now, it remains a controversial chapter in India's military aviation story.